Fremantle player Michael Johnson tonight is set to be stood down indefinitely from the Dockers after being caught with drug use on the weekend, an amount of cocaine by police in Perth. The AFL have been informed today. Carolyn Wilson, it's an unbelievable timing of this story given what we've just seen with Matthew Stokes and his triumphant return on the weekend, and now Michael Johnson caught red-handed by police on the weekend.
It's amazing to think that a player would be so cavalier as to have any amount of cocaine on his body, Hutchie, given what we've seen Matthew Stokes go through. Very emotional return to AFL senior footy on the weekend, as you said. Great performance by Geelong. I just can't believe that somebody would be that stupid, and I feel really sorry for Fremantle. I mean, they were really getting their act together on and off the field. Terribly disappointing. Unbelievable.
And you talk about Fremantle's momentum, 6-2 up in rarefied air in second spot on the weekend. And a week when the drug tests have come out, Tomo, always a big story. We had Ben Cousins come and do an extended interview and talk about the processes that he's been through, and then the return of Matthew Stokes. You couldn't write a script for this if you wanted to put drama and poor decision making. This sits at the very top.
It does, and when you consider that there's 14 players unnamed, and he's been caught red-handed, so to speak, but old habits die hard, and the only experience I've ever had with cocaine or any of those drugs is the people that have used it tell me that they feel bulletproof. Well, he must be feeling bulletproof, and if he's silly enough to be walking around with it this day and age, well, I can't. It's unfathomable. I can't understand that behaviour.
The Dockers have confirmed the story tonight. A statement from the Fremantle CEO, Steve Rossich, says as follows: the club is aware of the matter and has informed the AFL. We are treating it very seriously. We are currently gathering all relevant information and will make further comment when we are in a position to do so. League sources tonight, Gary, say that we've spoken to the AFL and they're expecting a pretty heavy sanction from Fremantle. He'll certainly be stood down for a number of weeks from the Fremantle side.
This is your area, you and Caroline more so than Grant and ours. Do we need allegedly in front of these things, or are we absolutely 100% that this is the case?
Well, he's been caught by police, and Fremantle have named him tonight, so we're comfortable doing so too. It's horrible timing. I mean, they're coming off their biggest blockbuster they've probably ever been involved with in footy on the weekend. It was at a nightclub. Caro, you'd expect at least a 6 to 8 week sanction in line with, say, what Matthew Stokes went through, but it could be more than that. Well, it's only a small amount of drugs, it must be said.
Yeah, but we hear it's not a massive amount.
Cocaine.
There was no suggestion of dealing, which of course was what Matthew Stokes was originally charged with and got off that charge. Look, I think Geelong have provided a really good blueprint with their punishment of Stokes. I mean, what he did was cavalier, what he did was crazy. It was terribly bad publicity for his footy club, but the leadership group got together, they liaised with the AFL, with the club. The kid was sent back to work. He went and worked at the zoo, Matthew Stokes. He was absolutely sent to Coventry by the club, I think, for 4 or 5 weeks, and he was allowed to come back through the VFL. It seems to have been a very good punishment.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll have a really good look at that as well. The question that's going to be raised now is the whole drug testing scenario that the AFL have got in place. There will be people out there who are saying this is just not working.
Well, that would be wrong, Gary. Well, that would be absolutely wrong. Some of the most ridiculous headlines...
Really finish what I was saying, but go on.
Well, I just wanted to make the point that I've seen some crazy headlines over the last week. I mean, you know, drugs shame, drug scandal, I think one of the TV news has led with last week, and powder keg. I mean, the AFL have tested so many players. They said they were going to cap it at about 1,400. They've gone way above that number.
But is this a deterrent?
And we still only have a very, very small amount of players testing positive. Is it a deterrent for our players now? Is it harsh enough? Well, people would say it's not. On the back of what we've just been through for the hundreds of kids playing footy,
on the back of what we've been through for over the last week, and the high-profile exposure of both Stokes and Cousins reinforcing it with his interview last week, and the very next weekend we get a player caught again. So is it a severe enough deterrent for these players?
Look, I think it is. I don't think we can ban drugs and suspend players and name and shame them after the first positive test, because it doesn't happen in any other workplace. I think what the AFL is doing... I'm actually a fan of the AFL's drug testing procedure and their punishments.
How can we have a situation where a third, or maybe not a third, but 3 players, the last 3 players, have missed all the drug testing and have been found out in other manners by police or in Ben Cousins' case, so that was with the police as well. So there's 3 cases that are completely missed. And
well, we don't know whether Matthew Stokes... we don't know whether Michael Johnson has got a positive strike against him. We don't know whether he's got 2 positive strikes against him. We've got no idea. He might be one of those players. We don't know. Obviously, there's an issue with clubs not knowing who their players are. And obviously, club members would have a right to be a bit aggrieved if their club traded a high draft pick for a player who's on 2 strikes. That's the problem with the anonymity of the thing. But I think to a degree, Gary, this is unfortunate timing. Ben Cousins, after all, was initially sprung and suspended by his first club, West Coast, because he avoided the drug testers.
Why is the anonymity? What's the reasoning behind that? Because I'm yet to understand it.
Well, that's what all the medical and psychological advice is to the AFL grant.
I don't profess to be expert in that area
I don't have a problem with that.
You have
I really
to bow to people who are in a better place from an experience point of view in dealing with these cases.
I'm very good at bowing.
You're not, I know that, but...
You're hopeless at it. But the other thing we should say is that, despite everything I've just said, the events of the last week would lead everyone in Australia who doesn't really follow AFL footy but takes a passing interest in sport to go, this is a code with a drug problem.
Well,
because you've got Ben Cousins, you've got the drug tests, you've got...
What's the right sanction, Gary? Just quickly.
Well, on history, the way that they handled Stokes, I would say... And I don't think Stokes in the end was convicted as a drug user. It was for carrying, and subsequently that charge was dropped for whatever reason. But I don't know, I would imagine that that's what's going to happen in a pretty extensive rehabilitation and counselling process.